Hello students, let's learn science subject grade 9 chapter number 7. Chapter name is diversity in living organisms. Now there are different forms, life forms on the surface of the earth, right? डिफरेंट लाइफ फॉर्म्स मीन्स बहुत प्रकार के जीव जंतु रहते हैं, अलग अलग साइज के, अलग अलग शेप के होते हैं. बैक्टीरिया से लेके एलिफेंट, ब्लू व्हेल तक साइज के, ठीक है. सम फ्लावर्स हैव, सम प्लांट्स हैव नो फ्लावर्स व्हाइल अदर प्लांट्स हैव वेरी ब्यूटीफुल फ्लावर्स. एंड सेम इज द केस विथ ट्रीज. द साइज ऑफ ट्रीज also varies. Like in California, the redwood trees grow up to 100 meters, right? And there are very thin trees also. Like if you take the case of a, जो सोपारी का झाड़ होता है वो काफी पतला होता है, ठीक है. Like that काफी सारे जीव जंतु रहते हैं, राइट, इन द होल कंट्री एंड इन द होल वर्ल्ड ऑल्सो. इफ यू कंपेयर, देर आर लॉट मेनी लिविंग ऑर्गेनिजम्स विच आर फाउंड इन सम प्लेसेस, नॉट ऑल प्लेसेस. सो नाउ इफ यू वांट टू स्टडी ऑल दीज, studying each and every one in detail will take lot many years. So they have been categorized so that the study of those organisms is very easy. Now in your class there are many students, right, in your whole class. So if all the height of children whose height is 5 feet 4 inches, all are grouped as A group. Then second group can be all students whose height is between 5 feet 7 inches and 5 feet. They are grouped in second group, that is B group. Like that they can be divided, and hence the study of them will be very easy. So this is the method of classifying them. Now let's see how the organisms were classified. There was a Greek thinker, his name was Aristotle. He classified animals according to whether they had lived on land, in or water or in air. So he categorized them on the basis of the place where they lived. That was a very simple way of looking, but misleading too. Why? Because animals that live in sea, they include the corals, that is the small reefs. मतलब जो पानी के अंदर जो पेड़ जैसे छोटे छोटे होते हैं वो भी रहते हैं पानी के अंदर, और मछली भी रहती है. तो वो दोनों को कैटेगराइज सेम नहीं कर सकते, राइट, बिकॉज प्लांट इज नॉन मूवेबल एंड फिश एंड ऑल इज मूवेबल. तो उसका जो कैटेगराइज क्लासिफिकेशन किया था वो सही नहीं था, ठीक है. Now let's take an example of a stone wall which is to be built. The stones used will have the top of the wall would not influence the choice of stones that come below them. इसका मतलब क्या होगा, जो नीचे का जो स्टोन का लेयर होगा वो सब एक ही तरीके का शेप का होना चाहिए, तभी उसका ऊपर का लेयर सीधा बनेगा, ठीक है. तो the lowermost layers always decide the shape and size of the next layer. So the classification is done on the basis of the characteristics of the organisms. Now we can define classification as the identification and grouping of similar organisms together on the basis of their form and function. Now what is the importance of classification? It will make the study of the wide variety of organisms easy. Second, it is essential to understand the interrelationships among different groups of organisms. And third, it forms the base of development of other biological sciences. First, a classification was done on the basis of two kingdom classification, in which two kingdoms means plants and animals, right? Only on those two bases they were classified. But we know that there are a lot of differences between plants and animals. Okay, the classification was not successful because there were microorganisms also, bacteria, viruses, that also had to be included. So that classification failed, and a new classification, 5 kingdom classification, was evolved. And the 5 kingdom classification was given by Whitaker in 1959. Which are the 5 kingdom classifications? The first one is Monera. It consists of prokaryotic bacteria and blue-green algae, microorganisms. Second classification was based on the unicellular organisms, right? And the classification name is Protista, which includes protozoa, fungi and algae. These are examples of that. We will learn about them in detail later. Third classification was called fungi. It consists of all fungi. Fourth classification was called Plantae. It consists of multicellular green plants and advanced algae. And fifth one was Animalia. It consists of multicellular organisms. And on what basis was this classification done? It was done on the 3 aspects. The first one was prokaryotic versus eukaryotic, unicellular versus multicellular. Third classification was based on the mode of nutrition, that is they are autotrophic. Autotrophic means they could make their own food. Heterotrophic means depending on others for food. Like we are dependent on plants for food, we are heterotrophic. Fourth one was the their role in the food chain. That is, they are producers, consumers, saprophytic or decomposers. Right? सब लोगों ने घड़ी तो पहनी है हाथ में, ठीक है? पहले घड़ी कैसे थी? पहले घड़ी नहीं होती थी. पहले सूरज का जो किरण पड़ते थे कोई भी इंसान पे, उसका शैडो देख के उसका टाइम का पता चलता था, ठीक है? उसके बाद धीरे धीरे द क्लॉक वॉज डेवलप्ड. देन देयर केम अ रिस्ट वॉच, ठीक है? रिस्ट वॉच में भी काफी सारा इवोल्यूशन आया है. एंड अभी आप देखोगे पहले कांटे वाला घड़ी आता था, अभी कैसा आ गया? डिजिटल आ गया है. होते हैं जो carry out various types of functions. Now the classification is done by naming the subgroups at various levels. First one comes kingdom, which includes most of the organisms. Then comes phylum. Then the order, then the family, genus and the species. In species there are very less number of organisms, and the kingdom has the most large number of organisms. Now let's learn about the classification of organisms in detail. Now let's learn about Monera. These organisms do not have a defined nucleus or organelles, nor do any of them show multicellular body designs. On the other hand, they show diversity based on many other characteristics. That means they have various characteristics. Some of and others can't make it. They depend on the environment. And they are called heterotrophic. This group includes bacteria, blue-green algae or cyanobacteria and mycoplasma. Some examples are shown in figure 7.1. You can see this figure. In this bacteria is shown, right? And Anabaedia. Now let's learn about Protista. This group includes many kinds of unicellular eukaryotic organisms. Some of these organisms use appendages such as hair-like cilia or whip-like flagella. Hair-like structures are called cilia on them for moving around, right? And the mode of nutrition organisms. They use decaying organic material as food and are therefore called saprophytes. Means they depend on the decaying organic matter for food. Many of them have the capacity to become multicellular organisms at certain stages in their lives. First they will be unicellular, and then when they grow big, they are converted into multicellular. They have cell walls made of a tough complex sugar called chitin. Examples are yeast and mushrooms. You can see the photographs here. This is the diagram of a paramecium. This is the diagram of an amoeba. There are different various types of fungi shown over here. Penicillium, Aspergillus, Agaricus. Okay. Some fungal species live in permanent mutually dependent relationships with blue-green algae. Such relationships are called symbiotic. Right? They depend permanently on others. So that is called symbiotic. On the which is as the slow growing large colored patches on the bark of other organisms' body living. Now let's learn about Plantae. These are multicellular eukaryotes with cell walls. They are autotrophs. That means they prepare their own food and use chlorophyll for photosynthesis. Thus, all plants are included in this group. Since plants and animals are most visible forms of the diversity of life around us, we will look at the subgroups in this category later. Okay? We will study it in detail. Animalia. These include all organisms which are multicellular eukaryotes without cell walls. They are heterotrophs. We will look at their subgroups a little later, right, in section 7.5. All this can be studied in detail. This is the brief description. Animalia are eukaryotes. You know, you have studied eukaryotes. That means they don't have cell walls and they are heterotrophs. Now let's learn about Plantae. The first level of classification among plants depends on whether the plant body has differentiated distinct components. The next level of classification is based on whether the differentiated plant body has special tissues for the transport of water and other substances within it. Further classification looks at the ability to bear seeds and whether the seeds are enclosed within fruits. First of all, the size and shape of the plants is used for classifying. Then the next level will depend on the cells and tissues which are used for transporting water and the other material used for living. Then after that there is another classification which is based on the ability to prepare their own seeds, right, and whether the seeds are enclosed within the fruits. Like, you know, the strawberry, the seeds are outside, and orange, seeds are inside, right. Thallophyta. Now we learn about Thallophyta. Plants that do not have well differentiated body design fall in this group. The body structure is not properly shaped. The design is not equal. So they are classified as Thallophyta. The plants in this group are commonly called algae. These plants are predominantly aquatic. Means they live in water. They are available, mostly found in water. Examples are Spirogyra, Lothrix, Cladophora and Chara. You can see all the figures of which are shown. This is Spirogyra, right? This is Ulva and this is the Chara. All these are algae, different types of algae. Now let's learn about Bryophyta. These are called the amphibians of the plant kingdom. Amphibians means they are available on sand or mud and in water. They form stem and leaf-like structures. However, there is no specialized tissue for the conduction of water and other substances from one part of the plant body to another. Examples are moss and marchantia, right? Moss, which is formed, you know, that green color which is formed on the water. Now let's learn about Pteridophyta. In this group, the plant body is different tissues which carry water and other substances from one part to the other. The thallophytes, the brophytes and the pteridophytes right? The reproductive organs are hidden. They are not visible. Which have well differentiated reproductive tissues which make seeds are called phanerograms. How are seeds formed? Because of the reproduction process. This group is further classified based on whether the seeds are naked or enclosed in fruits, giving us sperms and angiosperms, right? Depending on the availability, the position of the seeds, they are divided into two groups. Now let's learn about gymnosperms. This term is made from two Greek words. Gymno means naked and sperma means seed. Okay. The plants of this group bear naked seeds and are usually perennial, evergreen and woody. Perennial means they are available all around the year. Examples are pines and deodar. Now let's see about angiosperms. The word is made from two Greek words. Angio means covered and sperma means seed. Covered seeds means the seeds will be covered inside. They are not visible, they are not naked. The seeds develop inside an organ which is modified to become a fruit. These are also called flowering plants. Plant embryos in seeds have structures called cotyledons. Cotyledons are become green when the seed germinates. Becomes green when there is a cotyledons represent a bit of pre-designed plant in the seed. Right, from that seed you can grow a plant. The angiosperms are divided into two groups on the basis of the number of cotyledons present in the seeds. Right? Depending on the numbers of seeds, they are classified. Plants with seeds having a single cotyledon are called monocotyledonous or monocots, and plants having two cotyledons are called dicots. Di means two. Okay. Now let's see further classification of Animalia. These are organisms which are eukaryotic, multicellular and heterotrophic. Their cells do not have cell walls. Right? This is the classification of animals. Most animals are mobile. Right? They walk, move from one place to another. So they are called mobile. They are further classified based on the extent and type of body design differentiation found. Depending on the structure of the body, they are defined. This is the first definition. First different porifera. The word porifera means organisms with holes. These are non-motile animals attached to some solid support. These are holes or pores. There are holes or pores all over the body. These lead to a canal system that helps in circulating water throughout the body to bring in food and oxygen. These animals are covered with a hard outside layer or skeleton. The body design involves very minimal differentiation and division into tissues. They are commonly called sponges and are mainly found in marine habitats. They are mostly found in water, and their skin is hard, the outside skin. Some of the examples are Scion, Spongylia, Eupiletia. Right? Now let's learn about Coleopterata. These are animals living in water. They show more body design differentiation. There is a cavity in the body. The body is made of two layers of cells. One makes up cells on the outside of the body and the other makes the inner lining of the body. That is, it has two layers. Right? Some of these species live in colonies while others have a solitary like span, hydra, jellyfish and sea anemones are common examples. They have a cavity, that means cavity is a hole, big hole inside. So they are called Cnidaria also. Now let's learn about Platyhelminths. Studied earlier. The body is bilaterally symmetrical, meaning that the left and the right halves of the body have the same design. When suppose if you cut it, the right and the left will be like a mirror image. It will be same. It will be symmetrical. There are three layers of cells from which differentiated tissues can be made, which is why such animals are called triploblastic. This allows outside and inside body linings as well as some organs to be made. It is triploblastic means it has three layers of cells, right? Earlier we read it had two layers. Coleopterata. There is the well-developed organs can be accommodated. The body is flattened dorsiventrally, meaning from top to bottom. Understood the meaning? It is from top to bottom. And there is no body cavity. Which is why these animals are called flatworms. They are either free living or parasitic. Parasitic is depending on the other organisms. Some examples are free living organisms like planarians or parasitic animals like liver flukes. Now let's learn about nematoda. The nematode body is also bilaterally symmetrical and triploblastic. However, the body is cylindrical rather than flattened. It has a round body. There are tissues but no real organs, although a sort of body cavity or a pseudoleum is present. It is just like the body has a cavity, just like a cavity, okay? And there are tissues, but organs are absent. These are very familiar as parasitic worms causing diseases, such as the worms causing elephantiasis It can be also called as filarial worms or the worms in the intestines, roundworms or pinworms. These worms are living in intestines. Body is somewhat cylindrical. It is not flat. Okay. Now let's learn about Annelida. Annelid animals are also bilaterally symmetrical and triploblastic, but in addition they have a true body cavity. It is similar like to Nematoda, similar to Platyhelminthes. Okay, all these have somewhat similar structure, but only difference is that they have a true body cavity inside, which allows true organs to be packed in the body structure. Thus, there is extensive organ differentiation. This differentiation occurs in a segmental fashion, with the segments lined up one after the other from head to tail. These animals are found in a variety of habitats like freshwater, marine water as well as land. Right? It is found on land also. Earthworms and lichens are familiar examples. Right? You have seen all these earthworms and lichens. Lichens suck blood from the organisms. And you know how their body looks like? Right? Now let's learn about Arthropoda. This is probably the largest group of animals. These animals are bilaterally symmetrical and segmented. Means if you cut that organism, it will be equal. The left and right will be equal, bilaterally symmetrical. There is an open circulatory system, and so the blood does not flow in well-defined blood vessels. The coelomic cavity is blood-filled. They have joint legs. The word arthropod means jointed legs. The legs are jointed and they have blood-filled cavities. Some familiar examples are prawns, butterflies, houseflies, spiders, scorpions and crabs. Now let's see further classification. Mollusca. In the animals of this group, there is bilaterally symmetry. The coelomic cavity is reduced. There is little segmentation. They have an open circulatory system and kidney-like organs for excretion. There is a foot that is used for moving around. Examples are snails and mussels. It has a double symmetry and they have open circulatory system and they have kidney-like organs for excretion, that is for passing out the waste from the body. Now let's learn about Echinodermata. In Greek, echinos means hedgehog and derma means skin. Thus, there are spiny skin organisms. These are exclusively free-living marine animals. They are triploblastic and have a coelomic cavity. They also have a peculiar water-driven tube system that they use for moving around. How is the locomotion possible? With the tube system, right? Examples are starfish and sea urchins. Now let's learn about Rotochordata. These animals are bilaterally symmetrical, triploblast, and have a column. What is a triploblast? There are three different germ layers which give rise to organs. And what is column? Cavity in which organs will be growing. In addition, they show a new feature of body design, namely a notochord. What is a notochord? They have a backbone, at least at some stages during their lives. The notochord is a long rod-like support structure that runs along the back of the animal, separating the nervous tissue from the gut. This is the primitive stage of the vertebrates, having a vertebral column. It provides a place for muscles to attach for ease of movement. Rotochordates may not have a proper notochord present at all stages in their life or for the entire length of the animal. Rotochordates are marine animals, that means they live in water. Examples are Belangulus, Herdmania, and Amphicos. Now let's learn about vertebrata. These animals have a true vertebral column and internal skeleton, allowing a completely different distribution of muscle attachment points to be used for movements. That means they have a vertebral column in which they can move properly. Why? Because of the muscle which is attached to that column. Vertebrates are bilaterally symmetrical. If you cut them, they will be equal. Triploblastic, column, and segmented. They have segments with complex differentiation of body tissues and organs. All chordates possess the following features. They have a notochord, they have a dorsal nerve cord, are triploblastic, have paired gill pouches. Gill pouches is the organ which helps for breathing in water, and are columnate. Vertebrates are grouped as species: amphibia, reptilia, aves, and mammal. Okay, so let us learn about them in detail. First we will learn about Pisces. These are fish. They are exclusively aquatic animals. Their skin is covered with scales or plates, you can call. They obtain oxygen dissolved in water by using gills. They get oxygen from the water, and if they come outside also there is oxygen, but their body is not adapted to breathe that oxygen which is present in the air. The body is streamlined and a muscular tail is used for movement. They are cold-blooded animals. Cold-blooded animals means their body adjusts themselves when there is a temperature change in the climate. And their hearts have only 2 chambers, unlike the 4 that humans have 4 chambers in their heart, and Pisces have only 2 chambers. They lay eggs. We can think of many kinds of fish, some with skeletons made entirely of cartilage such as sharks, and some with a skeleton, means they have bones. So, examples are tuna and rohu. These are examples of fish which have bones. Now let's learn about amphibia. These animals differ from fish in the lack of scales. They don't have scales in having mucus glands in their skins. That means their skin is covered with mucous glands which help them to protect from dehydration. So you will see frogs which come out only in rainy season and winter season. They don't come out in summer season. They have 3 chambered heart and respiration is through either gills or lungs. When they are in land, they breathe through lungs, and when they are in water, they breathe through gills. They lay eggs. These animals are found both in water and on land. Frogs, toads, salamanders are some examples of amphibia. Now let's learn about reptilia. These animals are cold-blooded. They have scales and breathe through lungs. Right? Their body have scales. You have seen the snake. It has scales on the body. While most of them have a 3-chambered heart. Only crocodiles have 4-chambered heart. The rest, all other reptiles have 3-chambered heart. And they lay eggs with tough coverings. Why they have tough coverings? So that when they lay eggs on the ground, on the earth, it is not damaged. They lay eggs and do not lay eggs in water, unlike amphibians. Amphibians lay eggs in water. Snakes, turtles, lizards, crocodiles all fall in this category. Now let's learn about aves. These are birds. They are warm-blooded animals and have 4-chambered heart. They also lay eggs. There is an outside covering of feathers and 2 forelimbs are modified for flight. Right? For easy flying, they have feathers. They breathe through lungs. All birds fall in this category. Now let's learn about mammalia. Mammalia are warm-blooded animals with 4-chambered heart, means human beings. They have mammary glands for the production of milk to nourish their young ones, means they have milk-producing glands which they feed to the babies. Their skin has hairs as well as sweat and oil glands. You know, we sweat in the summer season or when we run, so it has sweat glands from which sweat is thrown out of the body. Most mammals familiar to us produce live young ones, means they give birth to babies. They don't lay eggs. However, a few of them like platypus and echidna lay eggs. And some like kangaroos give birth to very poorly developed young ones. You know, kangaroos, they have pouches and they keep their young ones in the pouches unless and until they are strong, they stay in the pouches. Right? Now let's see the classification, that is the nomenclature. We have seen the classification. Now we will see how these are to be named. Now you take the example of a dog. In English we call it a dog and in Hindi we call it kutta. Right? So there are many ways in which that dog is called. So it will be very difficult for other people living outside India to verify what type of animal that is. In Bengal you call it as kukar, and in Tamil Nadu you call that as nai, dog. So there are various languages in India. So everyone has their peculiar word for calling that animal. So there should be a nomenclature in which any person from any part of the world can able to understand which type of animal is being talked about. So a scientific method was introduced by Carolus in the 18th century for naming that organisms. We do not list the whole hierarchy of the groups which the organism belongs, but instead we will limit that to the genus and species of that particular organism. Now The whole world has been agreed these 4 steps in which the naming of that organism has to be done. The first one is name of the genus begins with a capital letter. The name of the species begins with a small letter. First we write the genus and then comes the species. When printed, the scientific name is given in italics. And when we write by hand, there is a space between the genus and the species. And we have to underline them separately. So, by this method of writing, we will come to know which organism is being talked about, and any person in the world can understand that. So, with this, we have completed lesson number 7.